It's definitely it's hard to win in this league and to get two in a row. I mean that's even better. Now let's try to get three.
All in all, the effort from start to finish, the focus from start to finish is a great formula for winning football. Plus 2 in the takeaway battle. All in all, I thought it was pretty efficient really in every phase of the game.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
The Monday after a Packer game, I typically like to include a comment from Matt LaFleur, just a generic one, maybe from the beginning of his press conference, just a couple summarizing, a couple of thoughts that summarize the game. I also included that comment from Jair Alexander because you hear coaches say that a lot. You hear coaches say, well, it's hard to win in this league. You hear that a lot from coaches. Maybe players say it all the time too. We were just playing comments from Jair Alexander earlier on Bill's show, and that jumped out to me. It's like, I got to bookmark that because I like that. I think this season, more than most NFL seasons in memory, at least in my memory, I really, that thought seems to pop up a lot this year. I'm like, yeah, it is hard to win in this league. And I say that without any sarcasm, without any facetiousness at all. This season's a little different for Packers fans. We haven't had a season like this in a while because for what felt, I mean, really big picture, almost 30 years, but for the better part of the last decade plus, we woke up every Sunday expecting to win. And if we didn't win, there was something wrong. Someone messed up, right? Or maybe once or twice a year, the Packers just lost to a great team, right? But we've really gone into Sundays for the better part of a decade plus now, just speaking to the Aaron Rodgers era, thinking we should win this game. And if we don't win this game, something is wrong. We want to get to that place now in the Jordan Love era, right? That's where we want to be this season. We think that the Packers are a Super Bowl contender and they're beginning a Super Bowl window and Jordan Love is the next guy. We think all those things. And I think this team is really talented. I think Jordan Love could potentially do that. We don't know for sure yet, but we came into this season with expectations. We didn't last year. And coming into a season with expectations of a team with unproven commodities, like I don't really know what Jordan Love is or can be yet. I don't really know what this receiving core or this offensive line. We don't know what to do with Jeff Hafley yet. We think they should be good. Vegas thinks they should be good. A lot of pundits think they should be good, but we don't really know yet. So we're turning on our TVs on Sunday thinking, well, they should win. We poured over this roster 6 ways till Sunday for the last couple months. They should be great, but it doesn't really feel like they've settled in to that place yet. This weekend, it kind of feels like it. Like that felt like a Packers game that I've watched most of my life. Noon game, Lambeau, October, lesser opponent, route is on, right? That felt right. But I think for the first month plus of this season, especially with Malik Willis in there, even if you think your team is good and even if you're really high on your quarterback and your roster and your coach, it's hard to win games in this league because for every good player on your team that you're excited about, every other or most other fan bases with their teams also feel the same way. So I wanted to include that comment from Jair. It made me laugh because it is a cliche and I can find humor in press conferences, these throwaway lines and comments because we listen to them all on sports radio. But it is true. And this year has been a huge reminder of, yes, it is hard to win in this league, the NFL. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Hope you had an excellent weekend. I was off on Friday. Thank you for putting up with a best of show, 3-day weekend, did some fishing, kind of wrapped up my summer. So thank you for allowing me. I know I didn't ask, but thank you. I don't think I got any angry tweets or DMs, which I appreciated on Friday. But we have a couple big wins to react to today. You could argue that the biggest win of the Packers season, and not just the biggest win of the Badgers season, but maybe the biggest win of the Luke Fickell era. And maybe that's a low-hanging fruit sports radio topic, but I think it is the correct discussion to have about Luke Fickell and what the Badgers did at Rutgers on Saturday morning. I think that's the biggest win of the Luke Fickell era. The other possibilities, maybe Minnesota down the stretch last year for the Axe. And I could see why people would argue that that's the biggest win. I think this one is bigger, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I do want to begin with the Packers. And I'll begin taking your phone calls if you have a reaction to this game. Call or text 608-321-1670. Get to your thoughts here in about 10, 12 minutes. You can tweet at Wisco Grant, comment on the live stream, which streams on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Very easy to find. The Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills. There's not another one. It's a specific name, uncommon last name. So it's easy if you want to watch the live stream and be a part of the show. That way you can as well. This game wasn't decided yesterday in the first and second quarter, even though it was 24-0. That 24-0 start didn't decide the game. That 24-0 start dictated the game. A very cowherd way of looking at this and speaking about this game, right? Didn't decide the game, dictated the game. And most NFL games, unlike basketball or baseball, are close and decided by a few plays. And there are your classic blowout where it's done at halftime. Those do happen. But a lot of games, even games that are decided by 14 or 17 points, how many times have we watched the Packers lose a game by 10, by 14? And in talking about the game after the fact, we say things like, well, if they just would have not dropped this pass and not committed this penalty, right? All of these games, even the games that aren't decided by 1 or 2 or 3 points, even the games that feel like they're not close, typically 2 or 3 big plays, these games are all a lot closer sometimes than even the final score would make them seem. Now, by the end of this game, it was 34-13. I'm not going to act like, 1 or 2 bounces of the balls. By the end, it was cooked. It was done. The Packers had won really by the start of the fourth quarter. But it wasn't over at 24-0. We see teams come back from that. We see games change just like that. A couple touchdowns, especially with the way that these quarterbacks and the talent at wide receiver in this league now, right? Games are not over in the first or second quarter, no matter what the score says. The game wasn't decided, but the terms of the game had been dictated, right? The Packers took a 24-0 lead. Offense, defense, working in concert. Matt LaFleur, of course, very much a coach thing to say, complementary football. They were playing complementary football. He talked about that. You heard that in the intro from his postgame press conference yesterday afternoon. When they went up 24-0, they forced Kyler Murray to play from behind in the rain. Now, I really like Kyler Murray. I think he's a blast. He's really fun to watch. I wouldn't want to build my team around him. I wouldn't want to be a fan of a Kyler Murray-led team, and I wouldn't want to have to hitch my Super Bowl hopeful cart to his horse, but I think he's fun. And I think he takes a bad rap, like the Call of Duty stuff. Who amongst us doesn't like to play Call of Duty? Who amongst us doesn't like to waste time scrolling on this or that? Who amongst us doesn't suffer from an absolutely debilitating Twitter addiction? It's not just me, right? Everyone does that. People get up his butt for playing Call of Duty. Whatever. Let the man play some Call of Duty. Okay. He just wants to prestige and unlock camos. I don't have a problem with that. I think sometimes fans, especially fans online, are a little bit overly critical of Kyler Murray, who plays for a franchise that's mostly been a sad sack franchise. He is uber talented and uber fun to watch. But if you were to rank NFL quarterbacks by intestinal fortitude, let's say, Kyler Murray is not topping that list. He's probably not in the top half. He's probably not in the top 66%. He's probably somewhere down near the bottom. Maybe not always the most accountable, maybe not always the most mature. It's not the type of player that you would want to try to lead a multi-touchdown comeback, because a quarterback to mount a comeback, you need someone with irrational belief and irrational effort. I wouldn't say Kyler Murray has either one of those things, especially not in the elements. Kyler Murray trying to mount a multi-touchdown comeback, period, let alone on the road in the elements when he's used to playing in warm weather or in a dome, as he has just about his entire career. The Packers put themselves in an awesome spot and put Kyler Murray and his idiosyncrasies, let's say, behind the 8 ball. By going up 24-0, they made penalties way more painful for Arizona. I think they ended up with 12. And I listened to the radio broadcast for the second half of yesterday's game. I watched the first half at a bar in La Crosse, because that's where I was this weekend. And then I listened to the rest on the way home, which was great because it was a blowout, and I don't feel like I really missed anything huge. Sometimes if a game is close, you can follow on the radio. I love listening to games on the radio, especially when I'm driving, coming back on a road trip, especially this time of year. The scenery is beautiful. Side note, love the colors, the foliage. But if the game's close and there's reviews or sometimes you can't get the full picture from the radio broadcast, as good as Wayne and Larry are. And I do enjoy the call. I didn't really miss anything driving. It was great. I was listening, and I think they said 12 penalties, and Arizona only had committed like 19 or 20 coming in. This was a game in which the other shoe fell for the Cardinals. Now, you can commit penalties. You can have a sloppy game. Not if you're trying to mount a comeback, right? It's like in the NBA. You can miss free throws and still win games if you're trying to mount a comeback, missed free throws will kill you. Nothing kills a comeback in the NBA and basketball quite like missed free throws. It's not just the NBA. We see that in college basketball too. Now, if you're playing from ahead or the game is close, missed free throws aren't ideal. Those are points that you don't really want to leave out on the court, but they really only kill you big time when you're trying to mount a comeback. Committing 12 penalties is going to make any game difficult to win. When you're down 24 early, committing 12 penalties basically seals your fate. And turnovers as well. You can win games turning the ball over, right? There's bad turnover luck all the time in the NFL. A tough bounce of the ball, an interception. The Packers had one yesterday where Bo Melton simply falls down. Jordan Love makes the throw anyways, and it goes into the arms of the defender. Turnovers happen, and they're not always, most of the time they are, but they're not always, you can't always ascribe them to bad play. Those things just happen. Sometimes penalties just happen. Sometimes penalties are bad luck. And those things don't have to kill you. Turning the ball over once or twice doesn't necessarily kill you. Committing penalties doesn't necessarily kill you. They kill you when you're down 24-0. And they kill you when you're down 24-0, and your quarterback is a little bit of a baby. And your quarterback is used to playing in a dome and is now forced to play on a slick field, on the road, in the rain. Again, the Packers didn't necessarily decide the game when they went up 24-0, but they dictated the game. Again, a very cowherd spin on this. A little dramatic, a little fruity, I know, with the language. I think going up 24-0, there's not a lot of teams in the NFL. I don't know if there's a single team in the NFL where you're like, actually, you don't want that team playing from ahead. That doesn't cater their skill set. Just about every team in the NFL is better playing from ahead because, of course. But Jordan Love, and we've talked about this the last week or two, is a rhythm thrower. If he gets going early, hits some passes early, makes a couple big plays early, he can snowball. We saw that in the Rams game. We saw that at the end of the Vikings game too. After he completes a couple and after him and his receivers get a little rhythm, a little motion, it's like a band warming up. Once they get warmed up, he becomes a much better quarterback. He's not necessarily a precision passer. He is not beholden to mechanics, right? He's not beholden to footwork. He is a rhythm player. And the way that Matt LaFleur's offense, quarterbacked by Jordan Love, obviously, kind of stacked up successes very early in this game. It felt like when they went up 7-0 or 14-0 or 10-0 or whatever it was, you could feel the offense snowballing. You could feel it. You could feel it kind of building momentum to the point where, you know what, I'm not really worried about Jordan Love throwing a dumb pick like we saw last week. I'm not really worried about Jordan Love not hitting his wide receivers in stride. We're not really worried about the Jordan Love things that we see when he's not playing super well or when the offense is disjointed. And you could chuck that up. Jordan Love had a better day than he did last week. He certainly had a better day than he had against Minnesota a couple weeks ago. And Christian Watson is back. That's significant. They're at home. That's significant. There are all these factors that, we could put on some list and say, this is why the offense played better. This is why the offense. I think when Jordan Love and this Packers offense, when they're able to put together long drives at the beginning of the game, that momentum carries with a rhythm passer, with a rhythm player like Jordan Love. He's never going to be a precision passer. That wasn't the type of player he was in college. Was really never the type of player that he was expected to be when coming out of the draft. But he had unbelievable arm talent, physical gifts, tall, fat, right? All of these physical traits that you'd want to have a quarterback. And the idea was, well, if you draft him, you develop him, you get him in a good system, he could be a really dangerous player. And I think the Packers have done that to the best of their ability, and honestly, then some, with the talent that they've drafted and put around him at tight end, wide receiver, running back. But I think his skill set, his prototype as a player is one that almost necessitates a strong start. And Matt LaFleur talked about it in his press conference last night. It's like, yeah, we took some easy plays early on. Jordan Love simply took what was there to be taken, right? Made the throws that the defense was giving him. And after he built up some of that momentum, after he got in a groove early, then you see him throwing a seed to Christian Watson in the middle of four defenders when he's not even planted, like his feet weren't even planted. That fourth down throw over the middle, or that absolute rope that he threw to Watson on that 40-plus yard touchdown, right? You also, if we're talking about factors that really helped the Packers be better this week than they were in previous weeks, being at home, right? The return of Christian Watson, the return of Romeo Doubs too, right? There were one or two plays where you just kind of needed a wide receiver to go up and get a contested ball, and he made both of those plays. They were both touchdowns. So again, we could make a long list of, hey, these are the reasons why the Packers offense was better this week than the last 2 weeks. And I'm sure you could do the same with the defense. But I really think, and I'm running the risk of oversimplifying this game. We have a 2-hour talk show to fill, so maybe I shouldn't do this. I think just scoring early, putting together a couple long drives early, it set the stage and it set the script for this game to play out exactly the way that the Packers would want it to play out, and basically the opposite way that the Cardinals would want to play it out. Like Kyler Murray, multi-touchdown deficit on the road in the elements. Man, I like Kyler. I think he's really fun, but no, he is not marching up and down the sideline, rallying the troops, trying to, when you say when a team is trying to mount a comeback, so like, you can't get all those points back at once. Kyler will try. Kyler will go off script. He is not someone who's just, all right, I'm going to sit in the pocket. I'm going to take my reads. Let's try to put together a drive. That's not him. There might not be a worse quarterback in the NFL to be behind 24, 21, 20, 17 points on the road in the elements. They put Kyler Murray in the worst spot, and that really set the rest of the game up for success. I would love to get your thoughts on this game. I think it's the most complete game that the Packers have played this year. Probably Jordan Love's best game that he's played this year. And we could talk about, the steps that they've taken the last couple weeks. I also want to talk about the Badgers tonight. They had a huge win on Saturday. I think that's the biggest win of the Luke Fickell era. And you could maybe debate the Minnesota game last year, but I think it's a tough argument. I'd love to make it, but I suppose some might feel that way. 608-321-1670, whether it's the Packers or the Badgers. We'll get to your thoughts coming up next. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's major. It's hard to win in this league and to get 2 in a row. I mean that's even better. Now let's try to get 3.
Feels like the Packers are building something the last 2 weeks. We'll see what happens against the Texans this upcoming weekend. And we're not going there yet. We're not on to Houston. We'll switch from reaction mode to preview mode maybe around Wednesday. But I specifically remember, to go back to the Minnesota game, showed some promise in the second half. Jordan Love shook some rust off in the second half. And while they lost, I came in here into this very microphone on Monday and said, they are set up so well these next couple of weeks. They'll go to SoFi, beat up Rams team. Crowd will be on their side. That'll be a great opportunity to take a step. And they did. And then coming back home to Lambeau, Cardinals are good, not great. They have some talent, will present some challenges, but that's a game, and the Packers were favored for a reason. They should win. Another opportunity to take a step. They took another step. Now Houston will be the most difficult challenge of this little period that we identified, this month or so coming out of the Vikings loss. They will need to take another big step to beat the Texans this weekend, but I think they have an opportunity to do so. 608-321-1670 to your calls as promised. Wisco Sports Show. Hello, who's this?
Hey, it's Hot Take Jake.
Hey,
Let
Hot
me
Take.
talk to you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, first things first, I need to do a little Grant glazing here. I just want to let you know this is the only radio show I actually listen to right now. So all of you producers out there, you program directors, take note, talent matters. On to the Packer game. It was kind of nice to just enjoy a game, never really feel like it was in jeopardy. I never felt that Arizona had a chance.
It was nice.
And that's good. They've been a nice little team here, a nice little story this year. And to go in there, just, do your thing and never have it in doubt was nice. But what I do need to do first off is I need to criticize Matt LaFleur, only because every time I've given him his flowers in the last 6 years or whatever it's been, literally the next game they come out and just do something stupid. So the last example would be just before the Vikings game. I'm like, all right, I got to give it up to LaFleur. And then that first half happened. So out of pure superstition, I'm just going to call him a doofus. And
Bum.
hopefully that just, I'm doing it for everybody, essentially.
Matt LaFlunk.
But
I like that.
LaFlunk, I love it. Well, the other big thing is this team is really close to being complete. And this is where I'm going to call out Gutekunst, because number one, I worship at the Church of Gooter. That's my guy, always has been. All he does is prove people wrong. But this is the year to make some sort of move. And I'm not saying it's got to be a blockbuster,
Sure.
You trade in first-round picks, that kind of thing. But with Hutchinson going down in Detroit, your worst area on defense right now is pass rush. You can't win one-on-ones. Hutchinson goes down. Sometimes the moves that you make aren't just for you, but it's also to prevent the other guy from making that move. So number one, I would love to see them go get a pass rusher. I don't know who that is quite yet. I think we got a little bit of time to see who really is available. But if you can make that move, that's number one. And number two, I said it last year, you cannot be a real contender if you're worried about kicker. They have to get rid of Narveson. It has to be a veteran that gets in there, because what's going to happen is you are going to win or lose a game on the foot of one of these doofuses. And if it's Narveson, you're going to lose that game. That's what's going to happen. It happened last year with Carlson. So if they really, really want to win a championship this year, you can't go into the playoffs with Narveson. And I would be really, really furious if they go that route.
So,
Thank you.
Good call, Hot Take. I don't disagree on kicker. I'm just struggling to. This isn't a criticism. We're all annoyed at kicker. I'm not telling you not to be annoyed at kicker. I'm annoyed with the kicker. Okay. I just don't know what to do about it. Right? I don't love taxes. They're not my favorite thing in the world. What's the alternative? We all have to pay taxes. Okay. So I'm not telling you, hey, taxes are great. They're the best thing in the world. I love paying taxes. There's not really an alternative. It's just kind of a fact of life. That's where we're at with Narveson right now. Yeah, he sucks. What do you suggest they do? Just go get another rando? Okay, sure. That guy could be worse. He could be worse. Narveson at least makes his extra points. And for everyone who's saying he's going to cost you a game, you could argue he's already cost them too. You could argue, and I wouldn't really believe it, because I think they had opportunities to beat Philly and they had opportunities to play a lot better than Minnesota. I don't think kicker prevented them from winning these two games, but he certainly didn't help. If they had a kicker that they could trust to make 45-yarders, they could be 6-0 right now. could be. I'm not saying they would be. I'm not saying the only thing that's standing between them and 6-0 is a kicker. But for him, it's like, hey, they're gonna, this a-hole's gonna cost him a game. He kind of already has between Philly and Minnesota, or at least was a big part of why they came up short in those games. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Clem, Mike.
Hey, Clemhead. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am excellent. Great weekend, and I'm glad I had to listen again to the second half of the game in the car yesterday. I'm glad it wasn't this convoluted, complicated game with I'm glad they were just blowing them out and I could just enjoy it on my drive, because I would have felt like I was missing out on some important details for the show today.
Exactly. My wife and some friends were at a place called Tenba Ridge Winery in Blair, and we were watching on TV with 100 other people. It was a lot of fun.
That's the perfect type of game to watch at a bar with people, is because you don't really need the sound. You're kind of just celebrating together. Perfect watching at a bar type of game yesterday.
It was fun. As people watching, all the eyes are glued to the screen, even when the Packers are way up. It's like, yeah, these are great fans. Yeah. But I want to thank you for giving me a shout out today on Bill's show when I did my comment on the live stream about Christian Watson becoming a real team leader.
Yes.
By his words and his actions, he has really stepped up. He's a grown ass man, and he's really taken to the part of team leader, and the things he said. And yesterday by his play, he's really showing us something.
He had to basically speak as a proxy. I appreciate it, Clemhead. He basically had to speak as a proxy for Doubs last week on Tuesday in the locker room, because Doubs didn't make himself available, which, all things considered now, is fine. He spoke on Friday and said the things that needed to be said, and then he played really well yesterday, and the Packers won, and this is basically done if Romeo Doubs and the Packers let it be done. Now, if Doubs pulls something else or something, okay. But as we stand right now, we're in the clear. But Christian Watson did basically have to speak as a proxy last Tuesday for Doubs. I thought he was excellent. He didn't mince words. He's pretty honest. He said, yeah, it was a significant thing for Romeo, so there's going to be some weirdness, but this group, we're like family, and that's the way that we're going to have to play. And I just want this guy to stay healthy, because he's uber talented. His impact on the offense is undeniable. And I think he's growing into a voice, a leader on this team. And on offense, they need some voices. They need some leaders. And I want to circle back to that. Put a pin in that idea of Christian Watson becoming a leader. We're going to circle back to that at 5 o'clock. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Tony from Texas.
Hey, Tony.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I am totally on board with what you just said. I was going to actually bring that up. To me, Christian Watson earned another contract, but not by his play, but his leadership, being a good teammate. That means a lot to me. So I'm glad you brought that up. Before the year, you and I talked about this NFC North was me a bloodbath. Mm-hmm. How about this division, man? I actually want to watch these NFC North games against each other. I mean, I'm glad the Bears are good. This is going to make the Packers better. The Lions, yeah, they lost Hutchinson, and the Vikings are good. This is going to prepare the Packers for the playoffs. I don't even care if we win a division. Just go through these battles, stay as healthy as you can, and when it gets to Packer weather, Packer time, that's when you got to play. And I'm with Jake. They got to make an extra move. They have a team-friendly deals on a lot of these players. This is the year you got to go in and get some kind of veteran defensive lineman or linebacker to add to that defense.
Sure, and I think that's probably the one area where it makes sense. You're probably not going to go get a star. Can you get a rotational guy? You know what I mean? Can you get another body if Preston Smith or Enigbari or Gary were to tweak their ankle, or just to have an extra body in rotation when guys start to get tired and banged up towards the end of the year? Linebacker, D-line. I would agree that's probably the natural fit. I would say that, and Tony, we might have talked about this last week. I'm worried, and again, we're going to circle back to this at 5 o'clock. I'm worried that, who are the leaders? Who are the adults? Who are the spokespeople on offense? I don't think you can trade for one of those guys. I think for a team like this, an offense like this that's young, I think those guys have to naturally emerge, right? So I would say that's something that could be addressed with a trade, but I don't think it can be.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it with Watson. I think Tucker Kraft's another guy. You're seeing more of him out there. But, I got to say this about Gutekunst, the defensive back, before we drop here.
Yeah.
The defensive backfield has got to be one of the best in the league right now. With this Evan Williams emerging, Bullard looks good. Obviously, McKinney's a defensive player, potential of the year. And then, Jair. They're not even playing Valentine, and Stokes looks like he's on the bench. So they've created some depth. I know Hatley, that's his position. His trade is defensive backfield. That defensive backfield is tough, man. Linebackers are playing better. I think Kenny Clark had a nice little pass rush last game. Even Rashawn Gary graded out pretty well per PFF. So defensively, they're getting things going. Kyler Murray is a tough quarterback to play, man. So next week is going to be even tougher against Stroud. But encouraging signs in Packerland, Grant. It's getting fun, man.
It's getting fun. And this is what we want, Tony. Steps every week, trending in the right direction. And they're 4-2. Right? It's not like they're 2-4 and we're hoping, well, hopefully they can just turn it on at the right time. Like, no, they're 2 games over 500. They're actually tied for last place in the division because the Lions are excellent and the Vikings are stacking wins. I think the Vikings are outstanding. I think that roster's really great. I think the coaches are really good. I don't know that they're just going to cruise to 14 or 15 wins like their early stretch of the season would indicate. We'll see. The Bears still might end up being the worst team in this division, but if they're the worst team in this division, they win 8 or 9 games. Like, you're right, Tony, this division's a bloodbath. Another discussion that I want to circle back to later on in the show. One more call, then we'll go to break. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Cone here.
Hey, Cone.
Glad I could get a win here for the Packers in the Valley.
Yeah, what are people saying about the Cardinals down there today?
Well, I've heard some rumblings. People that used to be close to Cliff Kingsbury, they were very close to going to Colt McCoy over Kyler Murray back when Cliff was still running the show down here. So, I don't know how happy the Arizona Cardinals are with Kyler.
Kyler's a lot like Trey Young, where it's like unbelievable talent, playmaking, super entertaining, super exciting, but some physical limitations. And I don't know if the attitude is what it needs to be. And I like him more than most because I just like watching him play. But a quarterback in the National Football League needs to be a lot more than just supremely talented. And I think that's probably where he's lacking. And that's probably why him and Cliff Kingsbury didn't get along at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But going to these trades that have been brought up, I like this idea. I think you make 2 calls. You call up the Las Vegas Raiders, hey, what do you want from Max Crosby? You make that happen. And you call Jerry Jones and see if they're willing to move off Micah Parsons. For Max Crosby, I think 2 first-round picks, I'd be more than happy giving those up. And Micah Parsons, maybe a first and a second, first and third. I think you make those calls if you're Goody.
Well, the Lions are making those calls right now. The Lions are already doing that this week. Brad Holmes, the GM, came from the Rams. He comes from that school of thinking. The Lions haven't been good in a million years. They're not just going to sit idly by and I think soldier on without their top pass rusher without trying to replace him. Micah Parsons, with the noise, with the podcast, you're going to have to pay him, right? You're going to have to pay him a ton of money as well. Although you've been wanting them to just like buy out Gary's contract, right? You use that money for Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, if you say like 2 first-round picks, Rashawn Gary, maybe you don't trade that, but would you trade Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness in a heartbeat? So, that's 2 first-round pick values right there. And then last thing before I drop, I know we're up against it.
Yeah.
It's just funny the way these schedules have worked out for the Badgers and the Packers. Like, you start off with a couple big games, don't go your way. You get a couple get-right games, Purdue, Rutgers, Rams, Cardinals, and then you can kind of pick it up. So, I think these next 3-4 weeks, Badgers got a big game against Penn State coming up. Packers obviously have the Texans. So it's kind of funny how these schedules are lining up with both of our football teams, but it couldn't have worked out better, I think, for each team.
Well, yeah, I think this was a perfect weekend for both the Badgers and for the Packers. Appreciate it, Cone. I think this was the biggest win of the Luke Fickell era. We could talk about that. And I think this win for the Packers, again, allows them to take another step after they took a step last week. And the level of play on the road against the struggling Rams, at home against the talented but flawed Cardinals, and now you're going to be at home noon next Sunday against a team that's a legitimate Super Bowl contender, very talented across the board, and Jordan Love's contemporary, C.J. Stroud, 2 players that are often compared to each other. So they're going to have to take another step, as the Badgers did, right? They played really well against Purdue. Let's see how they follow it up, which is something that they didn't do last year at all when they played well but lost to Ohio State, and then they got rocked by Indiana and then rocked in the first half by Northwestern. They actually took a step, showed up to Piscataway on Saturday and clubbed a team that is really physical, a team that was favored in the game. The Badgers were road dogs, and now they'll have an opportunity to step it up again in the coming weeks. Not next week, but with some real Titans looming on the horizon. And Northwestern is far from a pushover, as we've seen countless times. I don't even explain to you how Northwestern is a tough nut to crack. You've seen it many times, Badgers fans, over the years. 608-321-1670. We'll continue to take your calls. I'll give you some more of my thoughts on this Packer game as well, including parts of the defense that we touched at, that defensive backfield, the pass rush, certain elements that we haven't covered yet in the show so far. That's coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Welcome back to the week. Hope you had a good weekend. New segment starting tonight. We're going to do this to close every Monday show, assuming people participate. We have a pretty good response for today's Monday mailbag coming up in about an hour and 10 minutes. All questions will be read and answered at 5:50, last 10 minutes of the show. You have to email me your question, grantbills21@gmail.com. You might be thinking, Grant, well, why can't I just text it? Why can't I just tweet it? Well, if I did that, then everyone would just do something. Like if you actually have a specific thing or an interesting topic or an interesting question, I'm going to make you jump through one hoop to send it in. Otherwise, a bunch of people would half-ass a question. Then it's a small hoop, but it is a hoop. You do need to email me the question, grantbills21@gmail.com. Good first segment of callers. I would love to continue to take your calls. 608-321-1670. LaCroix Butler texts in, is Doubs a diva? The lack of celebration makes me think so. Also, LaCroix is back. Well, welcome back, LaCroix. Appreciate you listening. And congrats again, one last time, on your wedding a couple weeks ago. The Wisco Sports Show community, very happy for you and for yours. This text says, question, period. You put the question mark at the end of the sentence so you don't have to say question at the beginning. But he says, in regards to the kicker, when the team practices indoors, does the kicker still go over to the field and kick outside to get more practice and experience with the wind and conditions? I could not tell you. Maybe I will ask Mike Clemens next time that he's on. He can give you a good answer on that. I would assume he has to practice kicking outside too. That would only make sense. That would just seemed like, or seems like, it seems like an obvious one. I don't know though. I don't know that Narvison's issue is he can't kick in the elements. His issue is he can't kick, period. Misses a 42-yarder every week. In an era where kickers have never been better. Braden Narvison, I don't know if you saw the stat yesterday. I bookmarked it. Hold on. I need to scroll. I bookmarked a lot of things. Braden Narvison's field goal percentage is now lesser than Giannis's free throw percentage for his career. I got it saved here. Oh, it's Bucks Muse who tweeted it. That makes sense. Braden Narvison has a lower field goal percentage this season, 68.7%, than Giannis Antetokounmpo's career free throw percentage, 72%. That is bad. And we all agree. And we were getting comments during Bill's show earlier today. We got a call earlier. Is that Hot Take Jake who started us off? I think it was. I don't like him either. He stinks. He's not any good. If you can't be trusted to make a 42-yarder, you cannot kick for my Super Bowl contending team. Plain and simple. I just don't know what we do about it. And I can say we, by the way, I'm an owner. I don't know what we do about it. They could bring in another rando, but this guy was a rando. They could bring in Brandon McManus, but I don't know where his whole situation with the legal system and any other involved parties, it just seems like something that the Packers don't want to touch. So I don't know, but I would be surprised if they went with Brandon McManus. They could bring in another rando, but what if they bring in a rando and the rando doesn't hit their 42-yarders and also doesn't make their extra points? Well, then we're back to square one. We're back to last year with Anders Carlson. We can't trust to kick or make extra points. At least Narvison makes his extra points, and I know that's a really low bar, but you mess around a kicker, you don't have one that you could trust. These are the issues. These are the problems that we have to deal with. Tony, before we took that last break, Tony in Texas mentioned the defensive backfield. I did Pack-A-Day with Andy and Perry last night, and Andy pointed out they might have found their defensive alignment. Keyshawn Nixon at the starting corner opposite Jair, Stokes and Carrington Valentine on the bench, Bullard, McKinney, and Evan Williams at safety. Bullard was a little bit at slot corner yesterday. Coming into the season, I probably would have been pretty skeptical about the idea of Keyshawn Nixon starting at corner. I guess it makes sense for Jeff Hafley's defense. It makes more sense than it would have for Joe Barry's defense, I guess. Let's put it that way. Keyshawn Nixon, and I've talked about this before, is not going to wow you with his size or speed or length. He does not possess many of the traits that a first or second round or a blue chip corner would possess. Stokes does, right? Jair does. That's the reason why he was a top 20 pick. Keyshawn Nixon does not possess those traits. But he's really good at the football stuff. And I think I talked about this. I don't remember in what context, but I did talk about this last year. He's really good at the football stuff, reading the ball, reading the field, the instinctual stuff, the football player stuff. Don't get me an athlete, get me a football player. Keyshawn Nixon checks a lot more of the football player boxes than he does the athlete boxes. And in this system, it employs a lot more man coverage, a lot more risk taking. That might actually work because I think Jeff Hafley, if I understand his defense correctly, and I think at least on a very surface level I do, his defense is okay with gambling and getting burned every once in a while. You're going to get beat every once in a while when you're in press man coverage. Just happens. Wide receivers are really good. It's hard to cover someone one-on-one in space. But the idea is you get beat once or twice, and then once or twice you get a stop or you get a pick. Right? You create a splash play. You create a turnover. And the Packers have been very good at creating turnovers this year. I think Keyshawn Nixon can do that. Keyshawn Nixon's going to get beat every once in a while anyways, but I think that kind of fits in Jeff Hafley's defense. When Keyshawn Nixon gets an opportunity to make a play on the ball, I think he's really good at it. I think of the interception that he made against Patrick Mahomes last year on Sunday Night Football that probably won them the game. It probably won the Packers the game. If he doesn't make that pick, I doubt they win. They almost lost anyways. It came down to the wire. I think that pick was the defining moment, at least on defense, and probably the defining moment overall in the game. That was the ball he went to go get. He made that read and he went and get it. It's not like that ball came right to his chest. He went up and played the ball before the wide receiver could, or running back or tight end. I don't remember who it was. Doesn't matter. He went up and made the play on that ball. Early in the game yesterday, he comes across the middle, and did he punch the ball out from the hands of Greg Dortch? I don't remember. He came across and popped it loose on third down. He can do the football player things. He can read a play. He can read a ball. He can make a play on the ball, right? He checks all the boxes. He's the quintessential, don't give me athletes, give me football players. He's that guy. And that guy might fit better as a corner in Jeff Hafley's defense than in Joe Barry's defense, right? And that's not to say that Keyshawn Nixon is better or worse. And although Eric Stokes really, after kind of starting the season pretty promising, hasn't really cut the mustard, Carrington Valentine, much of the same. Keyshawn Nixon, I think, has found a home. Evan Williams is terrific. I am not a specialist. I am not an expert in grinding tape, watching the all 22 or calling out quarters, man, zone, match coverage, cover 4, cover 2, cover 6. It's not my bag, but I can watch Evan Williams come up and make a play on a read option, tackle Kyler Murray on fourth down. I've watched Packers defenders try to make that play since 2012. None of them have. If Evan Williams makes that play in 2013 against Kaepernick, the Packers probably go back to another Super Bowl. They've been looking for a guy to be able to make that play for that long. He read it like a book and played it perfectly. Not to mention punching the ball out from Greg Dortch. Like, Evan Williams seems to be that guy that everyone was really excited about and the guy that everyone hoped he would be in training camp and in the preseason. He's getting more opportunities, and that's mostly because Keyshawn Nixon's playing more at corner, which means there's more availability. There's more snaps to be played at safety. So him and Bullard are able to be out there, not just one or the other. Let's take a break a little bit earlier than I normally would. Come back, take a call or two before the top of the hour. I want to talk Badgers as well. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. A couple minutes to get to your calls before the top of the hour. At 5 o'clock, a couple things I want to cover. I want to talk a little bit about Luke Fickell and the Badgers' win over Rutgers. Not a ton of detail to get into because they won and looked really good. That's kind of all that needs to be said, but the significance of the win is pretty unbelievable. I think it's the biggest win of the Luke Fickell era, so we can talk about that. I also want to talk about this Packers offense. It's young. Who are the leaders, though? Who are the voices? Because if they're going to go on a run and win multiple playoff games and try to contend for a championship, need those guys. And I'm not sure who those guys are yet. And maybe they don't know either. Maybe we'll get to watch them come into their own this year. First, some calls. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it's Q.
What's going on, Q?
How did the fish bite this weekend?
I actually went pretty well. And a fun weekend fishing. Sat by the fire a lot. Did the requisite weekend in the woods things.
I saw Jerry posted on Twitter he caught a huge northern. I'm still waiting for your fish picture.
Dude, Jerry catches fat northerns and muskies all the time. That guy gets after it. Shout out to Jerry Windish, who's one of the better Twitter follows in Wisconsin sports Twitter. Let's be real.
Agreed. What a game for our Packers this weekend. It feels like the team still has a couple levels to unlock on defense and offense, but it was great to get some home cooking this weekend. And I was liking the 2 touchdowns for Romeo Doubs. We had some heavy hitters call into the show early on, and I was a little disappointed none of them gave Doubs any flowers. But I think it shows a lot about his resilience and character as a person to come out there and perform. And without his 14 points, we wouldn't have maybe won that game.
Yeah, it's tough to look at Romeo Doubs' catches. Q, that's a good call. It's tough to say, well, if not for Romeo Doubs, they would have lost the game because they won going away, right? They won 34-13. But the 2 plays that Doubs made were plays that were kind of up for grabs. And if they go the other way, maybe the game goes a little differently. I don't think the Cardinals are all of a sudden winning yesterday without Doubs, but they were able to put that game away and win so comfortably, really because Doubs went up to get 2 balls that were up for grabs, which is kind of what they were missing against the Rams last weekend. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
What's up, Grant? It's Badger Bloody Reviews.
Hey, Badger Bloody. I saw you and Big Ron at the Badger game this weekend.
Yes, I was boots on the ground in Piscataway, and what a game to attend. Boy, the Badgers look better than I think they have all season.
Maybe the best they've looked under Luke Fickell and Phil Longo. And I listened to the camp this morning with Zach and Jesse. I think Jesse made the point. It's like, that's the offense that I think Fickell and Longo have been trying to find, like the right mix of physicality, but also some big plays, also some air raid ideas. Like I think that's the offense they've been looking for. They finally found it.
100%. The air raid was raiding. The defense was standing up left and right. I mean, Rutgers did not look like they wanted to play football by the third quarter. And how that team has 4 wins, I have no idea. They are terrible. I mean, very, very bad. And, you play who you play, and you never apologize for wins. But, man, what a get-right game, I guess, for lack of a better term, for Wisconsin. Braden Locke looks as best as I've ever seen him. He had some deep balls that were absolute dimes.
You said get-right game. I think they made this into a get-right game. Right? They took Saturday's opportunity, not necessarily for a get-right game because they just beat Purdue, but they took that opportunity as a team that they saw. It's like, all right, I know we're road dogs, but I think we can do something against this team. And they just created, or they turned Saturday's game into an opportunity to flex their muscles in a way they really haven't against a team that's actually worth something. And I think Rutgers, I don't think Rutgers is terrible, but they're certainly better than Purdue and better than most teams not named Alabama and USC that they played this year.
I would agree with that, but man, it was nice to go into someone else's house and just punch him right in the mouth. I mean, the vibe going into the game was the fans seemed pretty confident, and me and Big Ron and the crew kind of didn't really know what to expect. But yeah, we were the ones having a better time there. Of course, standing up and cheering for all the Badger touchdowns. Really made me appreciate Camp Randall. SHI Field out in Piscataway. Nothing wrong with it, but it's not huge, and it definitely is not quite as nice as the facilities we enjoy at Wisconsin. So, yeah, great win for the Badgers, and all Badger fans out there, really just appreciate those facilities next time you're going to a game, because we sometimes forget how nice we have it here.
Hell yeah, Badger Bloody, and I'm glad that you and Big Ron enjoyed the game. You got to see a win, and yeah, it does not surprise me that Piscataway, New Jersey does not go nuts over college football the way that, forget the Big Ten or, the SEC, even Madison, right? Or some of the teams, even the powerhouses in the Big Ten that aren't considered powerhouses, right? So teams, I shouldn't say powerhouses, but teams that aren't considered blue bloods. Like, yeah, it's still New Jersey. It's Piscataway. Let's take a 2-minute break. Come back. Let's talk a little bit more about the Badgers. I also want to talk about the Packers offense too.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers are 4-2 after the win over the Cardinals yesterday, and yet they are considered, due to tiebreakers at this point, the last place team in the NFC North. That's because for the first time since they restructured divisions back in 2002, a single division has seen all of its teams win at least 4 games through the first 6 weeks. It includes the undefeated Vikings at 5-0, the Lions at 4-1, and the Bears at 4-2. Coach Matt LaFleur talked about the division today.
There's a lot of good teams in our division right now, so it'll get interesting once we all start playing each other.
That won't be for a while. Green Bay has played just 1 game against the division and has 2 more out-of-division games before they face the Lions. So LaFleur not really focused on the standings right now.
I think it's week to week. You just focus on the task at hand, and right now we got a team that's 5-1 coming into our place, so if we're worried about anything other than the Houston Texans, then we're worried about the wrong thing.
It'll be the Packers and Texans on Sunday. Kick is at noon. Turning the Badgers, they will face Northwestern coming up on Saturday down in Evanston as they look for a 3rd straight win. Meanwhile, the game time for the matchup the following week against unbeaten Penn State at Camp Randall has been set for 6:30 on NBC.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Bucs preseason slate continues at home as the Bulls come to Fiserv Forum tonight. The regular season fast approaching, the season opener a week from Wednesday against Philly. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
It's major. It's hard to win in this league and to get 2 in a row. I mean, that's even better. Now let's try to get 3.
All in all, the effort from start to finish, the focus from start to finish is a great formula for winning football. Plus 2 in the takeaway battle. All in all, I thought it was pretty efficient really in every phase of the game.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Two huge wins this weekend. Packers, Badgers. Biggest win of the Packers season. I think the biggest Badger win of the Luke Fickell era. So I'm going to continue talking about both of those wins. Let's not bury, not the lead, but a significant lead. UW-Stout did pull off an historic upset. And yes, I did say an historic, like a pretentious jerk, because I think that is grammatically how it's supposed to be pronounced. They pulled off an insane upset of Whitewater. I just love when Whitewater down goes Whitewater. Just love anytime the Warhawks go down. First time UW-Stout's taken down Whitewater since 2001. Mayhem in Menominee. It was bedlam at Donanona Williams Stadium on Saturday. My parents were there. Heck of a win. So let's not ignore an absolutely seismic upset in the WEAC this last weekend. Huge football results. Crazy performances. From Division III up to Division I, up to the NFL. No D2. There's like one D2 program in Wisconsin. That's dumb trivia that I should know, but I can't remember. Is it Parkside? I can't remember. The hell with it. Who cares? It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Want to continue to take your calls. Packers, Badgers, anything you want to comment on from the weekend. 5:50. We're going to get to the Monday mailbag. I will answer your questions. The stupider, the better. Send them to me at grantbills21@gmail.com. I still have a couple points that I want to make about the Packers, the Badgers. I want to give you time to make them as well. GWP Dad texts in, says, sometimes my kids use the wrong hand when using a utensil at the dinner table. Someone should check to see if maybe Narveson is using the wrong leg. It worked for Ben Simmons. Kind of. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's worth looking into. Cone Roller says, I agree with you on kicker, but Narvdog is the worst kicker in the league. Better just trying something new. The idea that you can't get any worse, I think it could get slightly worse, but I mean, Jesus, how could you pick someone worse? Dave from Monona. Good evening, Dave. Texts in. It's Parkside. Thank you, Eau Claire Chris. Dave from Monona says, don't worry. By the end of the season, they will be losing 4 out of 5. Are you talking about the Badgers? Maybe. Their schedule's murder down the stretch. That's why this game was so important, and that's why Northwestern is so important. If they want to get to 6 wins to remain bowl eligible, these are kind of games that they couldn't leave on the field. They needed to collect W's, and they're off to a good start. Dave, we could praise them a little bit. We can crush them for losing games to good opponents when they lose games to big opponents. We don't need to bring the mood down, but that's kind of your thing. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Dave! What timing? I figured this might be you.
That was kind of funny.
It was.
What do you mean bring the mood down? I'm the only realist, and anybody who spends money to go to New Jersey isn't playing with a full deck either, so I wouldn't brag about going to Saskatchewan. I mean,
you've never gone to a different destination to see your favorite team. That's a thing that a lot of normal people do. That's not that ridiculous.
Hey, I went to Iowa, Wisconsin football game years ago. I had a hot dog thrown at me. I told the SOB, why are you throwing a perfectly good hot dog? We picked it up and took the wrapper off and ate it.
You did?
Yeah, hell yeah. They were throwing hot dogs at us in the end zone.
It's free food.
And with the wrappers, I said, what a bunch of idiots. We just picked them up and ate them.
He's kind of a bozo. I mean, if you say that going to Piscataway to watch your team is a waste of money, then I could find like 100 things that every person does that is a waste of money. Like, yeah, technically we only need to buy food and shelter, but
That's right.
Yeah.
A couple things. As far as the Badgers, I mean, I can't get with them because of Luke Fickell. He just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I like to see him one time take. He reminds me of, this is political. Reminds me of Harris. Just why not take calls from fans? He chose when he came out of the university to dish all the fans. He doesn't interact. He doesn't take calls. He doesn't go out into the public.
When was who was the last show? You keep saying this. I see you tweeting about this. Who was the last Badger coach that had a call-in show?
Brett Bielema did. He had the Mendota Club. Alvarez did all the time. Brett Bielema did. Gary Anderson did. Paul Chris did in the beginning. And then Paul Chris just got weird, and he stopped doing anything with the public because I'm not sure whatever happened there. They all did.
I host a radio show. Do you really think someone in Luke Fickell's position should be wasting their time doing what I do?
Well, all the big-time coaches do. I mean,
do they?
Have? Well,
I don't.
Look at what's the guy's name from Alabama?
Kalen DeBoer?
No, the guy before him. Oh,
Saban.
My God. Yeah, Saban. I mean, he did the beginning. I mean, that'd be a good thing for vagabondism. All the coaches in the Big Ten, how many actually did call-in shows when they first came on board? I mean, it's just something simple to interact with the fans. He doesn't do it. That and the nil money. I hope they're going to get beat. But soon, in a few more weeks, Badger basketball.
Yeah. Now you're speaking my language.
Now I got a big complaint about that. I got the tickets today. Holy crap! I said, "What are you guys playing? A school for the blind, school for the deaf, and a school for Badger Bloody." You ought to see the schedule. It's absolutely.
They got Holy Cross. Well, who's their WEAC opponent? I want to go to that scrimmage.
I'll give you the tickets for that because we usually just don't even go. If you want them, I'll just give them to you.
Well, I want to go. I want to go feel self-important. I'll try to cover that game. Oh, they play Montana State. What are you talking about? That's a fun matchup.
They got one game here, and that's
I'm
Arizona.
a Grizzly fan. I prefer the Grizz to the Cats. I'm a Montana man myself, but to each their own.
But they got Arizona here on a Friday night, and then Michigan, the Big Ten. But outside of that, wow, that's
well.
But hey, new team, new players. New organization, new blood in the floor. The hockey team stunk. You lost to a team that's never beat a Division I school in their life. That wasn't good Friday night. But that's my thing about Badger football. Everybody keeps glorifying it. And one last thing about Doubs. I agree with what Bill said today.
Okay.
The guy came out Friday. He didn't give much out of him, but the fact that he I didn't hear his press conference, but from what I understand from Bill, he faced up, and that's all you can ask. If a guy's willing to come on and face up, and the whole truth will come out someday. But that's still tough to do when you got the whole world asking you dumb questions and tough questions, and you're not accustomed to that. And if it is something mental, then hopefully he gets. You could tell it's something personal because they all went and hugged him. If it wasn't personal, they wouldn't have went over and hugged him.
Yeah,
and you like to see that.
Yeah, and I can play the comment from Doubs. I appreciate it, Dave. We'll talk more Badger basketball before too long. This is Romeo Doubs on Friday. Basically, he was asked, why were you MIA last week? What happened?
I had some things going on mentally. I do not feel comfortable getting too deep into that. But just, you guys hearing it from me, there's some things I had going on for myself. I did my best communicating. And I'm just thankful that, that I'm here right now, able to still play ball.
So that's fair. And I know a lot of Packers fans heard this. It's like, I knew it wasn't about his role on the team. I knew Bill Huber was cooking something up. Obviously, he's got something going on. Okay, but the Packers suspended him. Everyone wanted, and I blame people like Kirk Benkert, respectfully. Everyone wanted so bad for the reporting to just be a crock. People were even on Bill's live stream earlier today. It's like, see, I knew it wasn't about his role on the team. It had nothing to do with football. See, I told brothers and sisters in Christ, the Packers suspended him. What do you mean? What do you mean the report? The reporting was accurate. It always was. Now, he didn't show up to practice, maybe because he was stressed about this, that, or the other thing. Probably didn't love the game plan. Or maybe just the game plan. Maybe that was the tipping point. Maybe that's what manifested his frustrations that were stemming from something else. But you still got to come to work. You still can't no show, no call, right? I don't know. I don't know what to tell Packers fans about Doubs, other than they're past it. And I think Doubs did a good job on Friday. Look, I'm not going to tell you what everything's going on, and we don't need to know what's going on. That's his personal life. He can keep that personal. He owned up to handling it poorly, served a suspension, and now he's back. We can move on. And Dave, actually, quite a progressive approach. I'm surprised you didn't want him cut or shipped out of town. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Happy triple victory Monday, Grant. How we doing?
No kidding. Victory triple Monday, Vagabond. John, how are you?
We got Stout. We got the Badgers. I agree with you. Anytime Whitewater loses,
that's great.
I kind of feel like
And I'm not
anti-Whitewater.
I'm not anti-Whitewater. It's just whenever Whitewater goes down, it means it's a huge win for another program. Not that like UW Lacrosse has played them close the last couple of years. It's not like they're always getting just stomped by Whitewater. Oshkosh has beat them too, but like anytime Whitewater goes down, it's a significant story, and I like significant stories.
It's a storyline, I think Hurley is actually a pipeline to Stout. We got athletes on all kinds of sports there. So that's a whole other conversation.
Probably is. I'm gonna pull up their roster while you're talking. I bet you're right.
Well, back in my day, I don't know about these days. But anyways, Packers, hell of a game, really impressive. Badgers can't, there's no complaints. I think there's a lot of, well, it's just Rutgers or, Arizona, they were missing half their team and, committed a gazillion penalties. It's like, yeah, but we've seen both of those teams kind of struggle in games like that, whether it's earlier this year or, getting to last year, thinking about like the Denver game for the Packers. Obviously, you have a couple Badger games earlier this year with inferior competition. It just felt so good just to go kick the crap out of these teams. And I threw a party, watched party in the backyard, and I'm grilling all day. I get on my phone after the game, and I've got like 15 mentions from Badger Twitter coming at me as if I'm like some huge anti-Badger account now. And I'm like, did I earn that, Grant?
You're not a hater. You're not a hater. You are the actually guy of Badgers Twitter. Does that make sense?
Well, I was gonna actually you on some cornerback traits earlier, but I moved beyond that.
I saw in the chat. I saw what you were saying.
But I think I'm the actually guy, but I also think I just appreciate the Barry Alvarez era. And all these guys on Twitter want to say, Paul Chris sucks so much. We ran such an outdated system. I'm like, we got a statue of the guy who like that was his plan. Like that's what he wanted to do. So any Paul Chris criticism, especially late stage Paul Chris, that's Barry Alvarez criticism. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, for the combination of, the Badger fans out there that hate both Paul Chris and Greg Gard.
Tough.
Do they want to tear down the Barry statue?
Do they not want to win?
Are we that far?
I don't get the Greg Gard slander. I don't get it. I don't get the Greg Gard slander. I don't get the people that want Greg Gard fired. They're off and they're doing their own thing. I don't know what to tell those people.
It's weird. I don't understand why appreciation of the past and 10 win seasons, great bowl games. You have the 13-1 Orange Bowl. I don't understand why appreciation of the Barry Alvarez era is seen as some sort of intense criticism of the current era. And if I've come across on that way on these airwaves or on Twitter, that's not what it was meant to ever be. It's more cautious optimism mixed with, to Dave's point, I don't think Luke Fickell's done a great job of integrating himself into the full Wisconsin culture.
Really? What do you want him to do? Do you want him to go to the dairy bar? Do you want him to go do keg stands at Mifflin? Like what? I don't get this. And maybe it's because I didn't go to UW. I haven't lived in Madison for 10, 20 years. Maybe I'm on the outside and fine. I will recognize that. It's just, what do you want him to do? What do you want Luke Fickell to do? I want him to recruit. I want him to keep doing. I want him to work on the football stuff.
Yes. But I think to that point, I think in order to do that, you need to have an integrated strategy that includes a lot of the alumni. I mean, it's clear the alumni feel very disconnected, and there's two sides to that horse, of course. But I think there's more he could be doing with Badger alumni. I think there's more he could be doing, engaging with the NIL stuff himself. You see a lot of head coaches at other places in college football. Recruiting is a part of college football. It's not part of the NFL, right? The NIL effort is a part of the college football job, in my opinion now, similar to recruiting. And I don't think I've seen a lot of that specific activity. I don't think he needs a radio show to do it, but I think there are things that he could be doing. What that is, I don't know, man. It's a new era. That's kind of his job to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, a radio show, that's pretty aged. I mean, who's doing radio shows in 2024? Appreciate the call, Vagabond John. Maybe I don't understand some of the criticisms of Luke Fickell because I'm not an alum. Well, alums are feeling disconnected. You know what'll fix that? Just win games. Just win games. That's the best PR. You want alums to be on your side. You want people to feel connected. And you want people to feel like they have their arms wrapped around this program. Just win games. That'll fix that. And I thought Saturday was a nice step in the right direction. I didn't expect them to win that game. I certainly didn't expect them to blow out Rutgers. And I don't really want to revise history. And I'm not taking pot shots at Badger Bloody, who was at the game. I hear a lot of people talking down about the level of competition of Rutgers, and I guess we'll see how the rest of their season goes. But I think Rutgers is a real team. They're conference competition. They're not Penn State or Oregon or Michigan, sure, but we are not at a point. Jesse Temples had to remind me of this 3 or 4 times when I ask him certain questions or when I levy certain criticisms in our discussions. He's like, well, this isn't a good team. So you can't cover them. You can't discuss them like they're a good team. You can't expect, when I ask him, Jesse, why can they not play a full 4 quarters? Why, if they start fast, do they end slow? And why, if they start slow, they end fat? He's like, well, Grant, they're not good. That's why. So I would like to approach this win through the same lens that we've approached the previous couple of games, and that is, this isn't a good team. Good teams don't go on the road as underdogs in the conference and blast a team the way that they did on Saturday. I thought it was a really nice step in the right direction, and offensively, it seemed like they found a little something that maybe they'd been looking for. The physicality of pounding the ball, rushing the ball. I think Luke Fickell's really wanted that, but also with a dash of Luke Fickell, or Phil Longo, creating explosive plays. I think this idea that we've heard Luke Fickell and Phil Longo kind of back and forth discuss in the media, this idea of an offense that, yes, creates explosive plays and pushes the ball down the field, but also we want to make sure that we establish our physicality, that we're a presence, we make the other team feel us. Saturday was the first time that I watched them and thought, okay, I kind of see what they're going for. I kind of get it. All right, I get it. So you want to be more modern than maybe things were just lining up in the power eye, right? Okay. But you still want to keep contact with that physicality and kind of that penchant for running the ball down your throat. They did a little bit of both on Saturday. I thought it was really impressive. And I don't really want to poo-poo it. Well, it's just Rutgers. Oh, okay. Well, I saw them get blasted in the second half of USC. USC hasn't won since. USC lost to Minnesota and then turned around and blew a big halftime lead to Penn State, lost in overtime. Like, this is not a good Badgers team, and I don't want to judge Saturday's result through the lens of a good team. I think that's unfair to them. I thought that was a really nice step. And the most significant win of the Luke Fickell era so far, I know you could say Minnesota last year. That kind of felt like they were salvaging a year that was pretty messy, especially relative to expectations. This felt like this could maybe be a jumping off point. Saturday could maybe be, we found something. Last year, that Minnesota win, well, I thought it was very important to get the Axe back. That felt more like Braylon Allen went out and won them a game and gave them a nice moment at the conclusion of a season that was otherwise very underwhelming. This Rutgers win felt like maybe it could be the start of something, or could be the start of a nice step in the right direction, and a program that's been searching for its identity for a year and a half, maybe just started to find it on Saturday. 608-321-1670. I'm going to continue to look at the UW-Stout football roster and see if I can find anyone from why can I not think of it? Where Vagabond John's from, up on the border. Why can I not think of it? Hurley, thank you. 3 minutes. We'll be back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. I want to talk about the NFC North in about 10 minutes after our 5:30 break. At 5:50, we will get to the Monday mailbag. Submit your questions. The stupider, the better. Email them to me, grantbills21@gmail.com. Yes, I need you to email them. Do not text them. Do not tweet them. I will not read those questions. I need you to jump through the extra hoop. That is the barrier for entry. You need to send an email to me, grantbills21@gmail.com. Sorry, I thought everyone would be jacked up about that win over Rutgers. Vagabond John, who I told during his call the last break, I said, well, you're not the hater of Badgers Twitter. You're the well actually guy of Badgers Twitter. And here he is in the comments, well actually me saying Rutgers is 65th in FPI. He followed up that comment saying, damn, that is well actually. Yes, you are that guy. You are that guy on Badgers Twitter. And look, was I not in this studio last week? Was I not talking with Zach Heilprin, our sports director, last week? Was I not talking with Jesse Temple, who joins all of our shows? He's our guy from The Athletic. Was I not talking with him last week? Was I not talking with Badgers fans last week who all rolled their eyes at what a bad team Purdue was? And everyone said, well, now they're going to go out to Rutgers and get clocked, and that'll be embarrassing. Was that not the sentiment last week, or did I completely and totally misread the room? I don't know that there are many people who are better readers of the room amongst Wisconsin sports fans than me, because I am debilitatingly addicted to Twitter, and I partake in 6 combined hours, 6.5, sometimes 7 combined hours of Wisconsin sports talk radio every day. Was the combined sentiment among Badgers fans not last week that they were going to go to Piscataway and get embarrassed by Rutgers because, my goodness, how far has this program fallen where we are now going to be Greg Schiano and Rutgers bitch, pardon my language. But that's kind of what it was last week, right? And now they go out and not only beat Rutgers, but hammer them as a road dog. And now everyone wants to poo-poo this win. Look, it's not Ohio State. It's not Penn State. This team almost lost to Western Michigan. We can't grade them on the same curve that we've graded previous Badgers teams. I don't know. I try to get excited about something. I try to get fired up. And Dave from Manone is mad that Luke Fickell's not hosting a radio show in the year 2024. And Vagabond John citing FPI in the comments of the live stream. I don't get it. Whatever. You guys fan however you want to. I thought that Saturday was a nice result and maybe the beginning of something. Or at the very least, they found an identity on offense for a week. They seem to finally strike the balance they've been so desperately trying to strike. I don't get it. And by the way, no matter where Rutgers falls in the FPI, I saw a tweet today from Parker Fleming, who I'm not sure if he's still with Sumer Sports. He doesn't have it in his bio, but he used to be with Sumer Sports. Net success rate in week 7 for college football. So basically, play-by-play, both offense and defense. How often are you succeeding in winning the play versus your opponent? The only schools who had a higher net success rate in week 7 were NC State over Air Force. I'm not sure what logo that is. BYU over Arizona. Mizzou over UMass, of course. Western Kentucky over UTEP. Who cares? Louisiana Tech over Memphis. Who cares? Army over UAB. Trent Dilfer is a disaster. That program, guys, the sideline announcer said yesterday that their faces just look sad and depressed. Clemson over Wake. Georgia over Mississippi State, and James Madison over Coastal. Those are the only teams that netted a higher success rate play-by-play in their matchup this week. Translation, Wisconsin walloped Rutgers as a road dog. No, This is not your grandparents' Badgers where we can just now expect this team to go on the road against lesser Big Ten opponents and whomp them. But they did on Saturday. I thought it was nice. I wanted to be excited about it. And I think it's the most significant win of the Luke Fickell era so far, even more so than the Minnesota win last year, because this win feels like it has the potential to mean something. That Minnesota win, yeah, they got the axe, that was huge, but it kind of felt like, all right, well, we salvaged a game at the end of the year that kind of allowed us to feel good about a year that was otherwise kind of a catastrophe. I don't think that's unfair. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Good call. Excellent. Let's go to line 2. Wisco Sports Show. Hello. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how are we doing?
Ridge Runner Mark, I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm good. For a second there, I thought I was the other caller that didn't talk, and I'm like, oh, God. Oh,
No, but you know what? I appreciate you being ready to rip. Thank you. I'm glad that you were on your toes like that.
Yeah, so Badger take. I'm not a huge Badger follower
It's fine.
At the moment. I have been at times, but I think when you've got these people who want to, in your words, poo-poo a really big win, you almost feel like they've already come to the conclusion that there's certain things that they're only looking for to deem as a success, and even success when it's slapping them in the face like a giant tuna fish, they don't want to admit it, or they're always going to do a yeah, but, which, you can say, yeah, but it wasn't Ohio State.
Sure.
Yeah, but where was Rutgers Lang? Rick, sure, but is it a success they can build on? I'm sure we could dive into the numbers, given the score and how it played out. There's plenty to build on with that success, and why not? Why can't we say this is something we can build on? It's also not at the end of the year where, like Minnesota last year, it kind of didn't matter because you're going to have turnover, you're going to have new players, things are going to be changing. Whereas this year, we're smack dab in the middle of the season. This is something the players can feel good about, the coaching staff can feel good about, and they can build on that. And then I'll say, yeah, but we did this wrong, let's fix it. And now they can say, this is what we did right, this is what we did wrong. Now you can see when you do it right, this is what happened. And it's easier to build on that success. I'm still a proponent of, you learn more from failure than success, but sometimes a whooping really helps.
Sometimes. And sometimes, we said this last week against Purdue, who is a lesser opponent, by the way, than Rutgers. Purdue is one of the worst teams in the country. Rutgers is absolutely not. Although Vagabond John's like, well, they're 50th in FPI or whatever they are. I don't care. Wisconsin went on the road as a dog and crushed the other team. We don't really, what, are we going to get into the weeds? This team has stunk all year. And now you'll be like, well, winning against Rutgers, what does that even mean? I don't know. For a bad team, it could be pretty significant. A bad team that's trying to build and get better. I don't know. And to Ridge Runner Mark's point, and I made this point last week too, sometimes guys just need an opportunity to take a deep breath and celebrate. Luke Fickell said after the Purdue game, guys were acting like 12, 13-year-olds in the locker room because they just haven't had an opportunity to celebrate a blowout win over a lesser team. They got to do that against Purdue last week, but then they got to go on the road in a game that they were dogs in and whoop that team. Now they get to celebrate that. I just think it's all positive moving forward. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hello. Hello. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I usually don't call in, but I got season tickets. I've been watching games since '56.
Perfect.
And my take on that whole thing was, yeah, they played Purdue, but they played them awfully well. And we haven't seen that in Badger football very often under the Luke Fickell regime. And I thought maybe they're turning the corner, and maybe this was good things to come. And my attitude towards Rutgers was that, they were a 3-point favorite. They were supposed to beat us.
Yes.
And we demolished them. And then I saw the Illinois-Purdue score. Illinois just squeaked by Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
So really, Wisconsin's got to be a pretty good team because apparently Purdue has an offense. And they played Illinois very tough. So I think good things about the two victories. And I think we're going to knock off Northwestern, and I think we got a shot at Penn State, maybe Oregon. I don't know. I just think that good things are coming with that offense that Longo has out there.
Think of it this way, and now I'm wish casting next week. Let's say that they beat Northwestern, as you say they have a good chance to do, and I agree. If I would have told you after the USC game, they're going to win 3 in a row, and 2 of the games are going to be blowouts. They're going to blow out Purdue, blow out Rutgers, and beat Northwestern. Would you not have thought in that moment, oh, that's great. That's awesome. They're about to have a great 3-week stretch considering just getting blasted by Bama and USC.
Well, I probably wasn't thinking that.
Well, nobody was. No, nobody was. We were thinking, man, if you don't win a couple over the next 3 weeks, you're not even going to be bowl eligible this year.
Right. Yeah, I was kind of, I thought it's really going to be a bad season, and we're lucky if we get to a bowl. We'd be lucky if we had 5 wins, but I got a whole different attitude towards it now. So
I appreciate that. I think that Rutgers game was huge for players and fans. Cone Roller chimes in with a text back to the text line. Says, fantastic take by Dave. Fickell is a government employee. It's owed to us. You're right on some level. Accountability. I'm paying his salary. Bobby in Menominee says, shout out Hurley for not having a strict border patrol. Yeah, that's right. By the way, the UW-Stout roster has a player from Campbellsport and Combined Locks. Combined Locks, of course, across the Fox River from Little Chute. I had to look that up. Not Lil Chute, Little Chute. 608-321-1670. One more call, then we're going to go to break. Let's go Sports Show. Who's this?
Big Ron in Jersey.
Big Ron, you saw this one up close and personal.
I did. 14th row, corner of the end zone, man. The first 3 touchdowns were all scored right in front of me. It was great.
Yeah. Hell yeah. You're an alum. You're not poo-pooing this win, are you? Come on.
No, the biggest difference the last 2 weeks is Locke is locked in, man. That guy is playing out of his mind. And, it helps that the running game's clicking and the play action's working. And, I think Phil Longo's calling better games. But the biggest difference is the play of Locke. He is making, Van Dyke was a talented guy who really had poor judgment, in my opinion.
Okay.
And Locke has been locked in. He's been making good decisions, and he's been throwing accurate balls. And, Rutgers beat Washington. I mean, I know Washington doesn't have Penix, but weren't they in the national championship game last year?
Yeah, Rutgers, I don't know. We've been watching the Badgers all year who haven't been any good. I don't know what makes us feel like we're in the position to say that a win over Rutgers on the road is not significant for this team.
Yeah, I mean, Rutgers only lost at Nebraska by 7 points.
Yeah.
Okay, Nebraska's supposed to be pretty decent this year. I'm excited. I think I agree with that last caller. I think we're going to take it to Northwestern. It'll be a pro-Badger crowd. That'll be a virtual home game, as it always is, although that hasn't helped us much in the past. But, and then I think Penn State did not look good this weekend. I think we got a legit chance at beating Penn State at night at Camp Randall.
Well, and that's the thing. And Big Ron, I got to go. I'm late for a break. That's the thing. If you could beat Northwestern, then we can have a conversation about, okay, how can we steal one between Oregon and Penn State? And depending on what you think of Iowa, how can we get one? Because you need to get the wins. Andrew's commenting on the live stream. You need to get the wins, beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And they've done that so far this year, including stealing a game that they weren't expected to beat as dogs at Rutgers. Now, I don't know what the line's going to be for Northwestern. I haven't checked, but that's a game that we hope after last 2 weeks that they can and should win. How do you pick 1 or 2 more off? How do you steal another win? And, Minnesota, Nebraska options as well, but that Penn State, Oregon combo. And I think they're at Kinnick for Iowa this year, right? I don't have the schedule in front of me. I shouldn't just talk out of my butt. We should just end the segment. Good Badgers conversation. A couple Packers points to make next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Packers, though, we alluded to this. The NFC North is so good. The Packers are the first team ever through 6 weeks to be 4-2 and last in the division.
Yeah, every team is 4-2 or better. Right now, they have the 4 highest point differentials in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
All in that division.
Yeah.
So the Vikings are plus 63, the Lions plus 60, the Bears plus 47, the Packers plus 41. The second best division, when you like add up all those numbers together, the second best division is the AFC West with a plus 20.
Yeah.
Total. And I just said the Packers
211.
The Packers are in last with a plus 41.
Yeah, on aggregate, the NFC North is 17-5 overall and a plus 211 point differential.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's nuts.
from Pardon My Take, Big Cat and PFT. I like that soundbite because they lay out so many good statistics. Now I don't have to. Did you hear all those numbers? Wow, the NFC North is great. It's the best division in football. It's not close. The Packers are 4-2, and they are technically in last place with the Bears. And why would that be? Points, what would the tiebreaker be between the Bears? Wouldn't be common opponents. Who cares? Doesn't matter. It's only October 14th. Who cares? I love trying to figure out something on live radio and then just going, you know what? Who cares? The NFC North is great. And watching the Lions yesterday, Jeff Hafley is a first-year defensive coordinator. Good luck with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, Kevin O'Connell. Good luck with, I think, only getting better, Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson. And good luck with Ben Johnson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, and a combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Good luck. You're going to need it. Good luck with all that. Good luck with all that. The Lions are especially terrifying because they can throw the ball all over the place, but they can also just stuff it down your yap over and over. Like the Lions are just so complete offensively. They can beat you so many different ways. And I suppose the Vikings and the Bears, if the Bears continue to get better, I suppose those two teams could as well. But the Lions, my God. 608-321-1670. Just a couple minutes away from the Monday mailbag, by the way. Going to wrap up the show with that. Send your questions in grantbills21@gmail.com. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on
I knew it. Eric, good evening.
Good evening, Grant. What a great weekend of football, huh?
An excellent weekend of football.
Yeah. I don't really quite understand the whole Badgers business. I think that a lot of the alumni, and I'm like you, Grant. I'm not in that loop, right? You haven't lived in Madison your whole life. You're not an alumni, but I think sometimes it gets to the point where it's like, well, why aren't you like it was back in the early 2000s with Barry Alvarez?
Yeah.
And cars were $6,000 branded. That's kind of the feeling you get a little bit, right?
Back when, what's the Tim McGraw song? Back when a screw was a screw and the wind was all that blew.
Right, because it was such a great time in their life. So they're wondering why is Luke Fickell effing this all up for us? And it's a totally different era, right? Totally different era. He's not going to go on the radio and subject himself to these kinds of callers like myself, right? He's not going to do that.
Imagine Luke Fickell getting double teamed by you and Dave from Monona. I'd listen to that program. That would be electric.
He's not going to have the answers to our questions because they're not even real questions. So let's just enjoy the win. Let's just enjoy the win. I don't know what the hopes and aspirations are. I don't. The hopes and aspirations are that we get in the Tostitos Bowl.
I'd like to get in a bowl. Those are my hopes and aspirations this year. And an alum might be, well, we used to stand for something at this university. Okay, great. And I hope to very soon once again be back in that spot, but that's not the spot in which we find ourselves currently. So we're working back towards that.
That is not the spot. And they're working back, and it seems like there's progress being made. So I think everybody should settle down and just accept the win. That's what I've been doing as a Vikings fan. I just accept the win. I know this could all fall apart in one game.
Yeah.
One game, the right injury to the right person, it all comes, Sam Darnold might regress to the mean.
Could.
Right?
Yep.
He's not as good as he's been playing.
You said when before you started calling sports radio shows, have you ever said a certain player could regress to the mean before in your life? Those words had never come out of your mouth before you started being a high level caller.
Never come out of my mouth. I have used that term. Everything regresses to the mean, and the engineering world. That is a phrase. Yes.
Of an educated type. Yeah, I agree. Eric, I got to run, but I was in the district this weekend, had a nice cold beer at Leo and Leona's, and the Northern Lights were out and fantastic on Thursday night down there.
I took my standard patrol through there on Saturday, and I just made sure everything was okay. Everything was good.
Good. I'm glad you looked in on it. I appreciate it, Eric. Let's come back. We'll wrap up the show with the Monday mailbag. Lots of your questions, hopefully some sports related, hopefully some not. Email them to me, grantbills21@gmail.com. We will answer some listener submitted questions, wrapping up the Wisco Sports Show. A little fun to wrap up the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Because the mail never stops.
Charles, we'll be writing to you.
She's got mail. That's the name of the
That's
it,
honey. There's never a let-up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more. You got to get it up. And the more you get out, the more it keeps coming in.
It's the Monday mailbag, wrapping up the Wisco Sports Show with some listener-submitted questions. I will answer them if you email them to me, grantbills21@gmail.com. Now, you can ask questions about anything, saying this is your opportunity to ask about anything. You can text, you can tweet, you can comment on the live stream. Sports, Packers, Badger questions all the time. And you can email those questions too. I'm just saying this is a golden opportunity to make whatever topic front of mind on the show that you would like. Let's start with Michael. It says, hi, Grant. I'm an avid trout fisherman as well as you. I wouldn't say that I'm avid, but I do it. So I'd love to hear about your fishing experiences on the Wisco Sports Show. I was just fishing the beautiful streams of northern Oconto County a couple weekends ago and slayed them. Figuratively, of course, all were released, but you know what I mean. Tons of brookies and a few browns. The biggest measuring 15, saw plenty 20-plus trophies as well. Michael. Thank you, Michael. I am a driftless man myself. Now that I live in southeastern Wisconsin, would love to familiarize myself with streams. It's difficult though. Like I go up to Port Washington and there'll be like 30 fishermen in a span of 30 yards. It's like, I don't know. I could just go fish in a fish tank too. So when you say Northern Oconto County, I would be interested in venturing up that way. I tried to fish the Onion River a couple weeks ago. And I tell you the river that I fish, I'm anti. I don't like that. It's not hard. The internet has so much information. There's Google Maps. You could just zoom in and look at anything. So I'd tell you, but it seems wrong. Tyler says, what is your top bucket list sporting event or venue that you would like to see in person? Venue? I mean, I've been to the Sphere. Consider myself very lucky. Is Red Rocks a lame answer? Gorge would be cool. I've never been to Alpine Valley. So I guess I can't say Alpine Valley. That can't be my dream venue. That's literally down the road. I could just go do that anytime I want. Venue, not sure. If there were any act that I could see, dead or alive, I would have killed, literally, to see Jimmy Buffett in the 90s. Seemed absolutely electric. So Buffett in the 90s, his Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturday era, they were just tight. Sean O'Connell emails in. Says, Grant, it is obvious that the NFL wants to kill the goose that laid the golden egg with rule changes, ignoring Metallica's offer to play the Super Bowl halftime show for free, putting games behind paywalls, and compelling fans to have to travel internationally for regular season games. They just put their bread and butter consumers on the back burner priority-wise. Is there a situation, remedy, or change that would make knuckle-dragging simpleton oafs with diminished capacities like myself forget our grievances and buy into the Roger Goodell's kinder, gentler Eurotrash NFL? The only thing I can think of are strippers, but I'm guessing network TV standards and practice lawyers would shoot that down pretty quickly. They may also get cold at Lambeau Field. Your brother in Christ, Sean O'Connell. P.S. Oh, snap. Strippers could probably be featured on streaming-only games. Yeah, or maybe on cable. Probably not on broadcast network. Sean, are you out on the NFL right now? Product is unbelievable. I can't wait to get home to watch the Bills play the Jets tonight. It's a game that's very little to do with my show, but my team is what I meant to say. Is there anything the NFL could do? Sean, let me say this. I don't understand what people have against Guardian caps. I listen to other sports radio shows, and hosts are like, do they even work? It's like, probably, yeah, probably. And why do you have a hard time believing they work? It's padding on your head. Why is that a difficult leap to make? And yet some people are like, man, if everyone starts wearing these Guardian caps, I am out. Really? That's what's going to do it. A slightly padded helmet. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And Sean, I don't really believe that you as a knuckle-dragging simpleton, I don't believe that you're off. Tom, a brief, stupid sports question. He writes, in light of William Contreras being named team MVP, should the award actually go to Asteria Ruiz, teacher Tom? Well, by that logic, it should actually go to Josh Hader. So somebody tweet the thank you, Josh Hader graphic, because I think in this instance, it applies. Mike, along those Brewers lines, says, is there any way we can convince Rhys Hoskins to decline his player option? If not, do you think we as fans have any standing for legal action? Thanks, I'll hang up and listen. Not to poo-poo another email. Am I the only one who's excited to get Rhys Hoskins back next year? I like him. And I know he was bad this year. But he's not the reason they lost in the playoffs. He could have been a bigger part of the reason why they maybe would have been winners had they won. I mean, what's the alternative? If Rhys Hoskins says he's declining his player option, I just know that half of the sports radio stations in the state are going to start some dumb Christian Yelich at first base thing. And I'd rather pay Rhys Hoskins $80 million a year than go through any segment of Christian Yelich possibly playing first. I can't do it. Justin in Eau Claire, how did you get into sports radio and what did you do? Hold on. My question is, how did you get into sports radio and do what you do? As that is what I would like to do for a career. You would like to do this for a career, Justin. I don't know. Just talk. Just start a podcast and just do it all the time. Just talk. Reach out to people. Try to be job shadows, internships, all the things. How did I end up doing this? I'm not good at anything else. I don't even know that I'm that good at this. I don't know what I would do. If I lose this job, I do not know what I'm doing. I don't even know what I'm doing when I'm here. You just turn on the mic and it kind of works itself out at this point. I made it past that original. Once I'm on the air for a while, they just kind of forget that I'm here. I'm here late in the day. I don't really see my bosses that much. I kind of fly under the radar. Why do I do this? How do I do this? I don't know what else I do, Justin. That's the answer. I feel like that's not probably the answer you were looking for. Maybe I will email you back with some more bullet points if you're really wondering. Let's wrap up with this. This one's from Gio in De Pere. Says, hey, Grant, question for your new mailbag thing. He says in all caps. Would you rather have shovels for hands or $1 million cash? I'm picking shovel for hands and not looking back. Productivity and can make more money off that in the long haul. These shovel hands of mine, LOL. What about you? You're asking me if I would rather have $1 million cash or shovels for hands. Shovels for hands wouldn't really impact my ability to do this job. And maybe it would allow me to pick up some work on the side. I'm just wondering how long it would take me to make $1 million cash with shovels for hands. $1 million cash or shovels for hands. That's a great way to wrap up the Monday mailbag. Excellent. Thank you for all your questions. GrantBills21@gmail.com. Again, I'm going to make you email because it's an extra hoop to jump through. It cuts off the people who don't really have their heart in it, like Gio and De Pere. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Be back tomorrow. We'll get into some more Packers stuff because we were a little bit more Badger heavy in hour number 2, which is fine. We'll talk more Packers. I want to talk about Christian Watson tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Podcast will go up in a couple minutes.